Viewers of my channel will know what Metal Hellsinger is, as I made a video on it in October of 2022. It's a fast-paced rhythm shooter that includes famous metal vocalists. It has the signature playstyle of Doom and the unforgettable feel of heavy metal. It's essentially Doom Eternal, but with a better soundtrack. Sorry, Mick. Oh yeah, it was also famously snubbed for literally every single best score nomination out there, from the BAFTAs to the DICE Awards to the Game Awards. Look, I love God of War Ragnarok, but its soundtrack is objectively not better than Metal Hellsinger's. Anyway, gamers as a whole should also know what Devil May Cry is. It's the grandfather of the modern ARPG. Sure, Devil May Cry 2 is one of the worst games I've ever played, but the rest of the series still holds up to this day. It's got engaging combat, the combat ranking system encourages you to play as stylishly as possible, and this all only gets amplified with Devil May Cry 5. DMC has solidified itself as one of the most influential video game franchises in history, and Dante and Virgil will always be video game icons. Without Devil May Cry, we never would have gotten Bayonetta, Metal Gear Rising, God of War, Nier Automata, etc. Now, what if we got these two really good games and combined them? That's right, a rhythm hack and slash. And who better to do this than the Evil Within studio? I'm not joking. I probably just described Hi-Fi Rush as his unholy amalgam of chaos, but this game genuinely is amazing. I am bewildered at the fact that Xbox just dropped this without any warning, especially in between two of the most anticipated games of the year. Yes, I know Forspoken is a bad game, but the point is it was still extremely hyped and marketed before release. All of the cards were against these guys, and yet they knocked it out of the goddamn ballpark. Everything about this game is fantastic. The characters are charming and endearing. The main character is essentially everything Frey from Forspoken wanted to be. The combat takes what makes Devil May Cry so great and innovates on it with the rhythm aspect. The comic book art style puts realism to shame. The soundtrack, which combines actual licensed music and self-composed titles, is always a blast to listen to. If you think I'm over-exaggerating, let me show you why Hi-Fi Rush is an early Game of the Year contender. Hi-Fi Rush was developed by Tango Gameworks, which is owned by Bethesda Softworks, a subsidiary of ZeniMax Media owned by Microsoft. Bethesda is known for publishing and/or creating some of the most well-known game franchises in the industry, like Doom, Wolfenstein, The Elder Scrolls Prey, Fallout, Dishonored, and Deathloop. Their most recent game was the much-aligned Redfall, and their next upcoming game is Starfield. Tango Gameworks are known for 4 games and 4 games only: The Evil Within, The Evil Within 2, Ghostwire Tokyo, and this game. To add some context, Tango was founded by Shinji Mikami, most well known for creating the Resident Evil series. He also directed The Evil Within 1 and executive produced 2. In a March 2020 interview with Japanese video game magazine Famitsu, Mikami said he wanted Tango to venture outside of the survival horror genre. Important, since Ghostwire Tokyo was originally going to be a third entry in the Evil Within franchise, so it still retains some survival horror aspects. Also, unrelated, but on February 23, 2023, Mikami left Tango Gameworks, and it's speculated that he's going to retire sometime in the future. John Johannes was the director of The Evil Within 2 and also the director for Hi-Fi Rush. John originally pitched the idea to Mikami after the release of The Evil Within 2, and a creative team designed an internal demo to show to the higher-ups at Bethesda. Development on the game started in 2017 in conjunction with Ghostwire Tokyo. In Bethesda tradition, the development was kept under wraps with no prior announcement being made to the public. Part of the reason this was done was to avoid skepticism and high expectations, since this game was a big departure for every party involved. Sometime after Microsoft's $7.5 billion acquisition of ZeniMax Media, the marketing team suggested making Hi-Fi Rush a part of Xbox's Game Pass service, stating it would lower the bar for entry and spread interest through word of mouth. Normally at this point, I would explain how the game was marketed prior to release. This would include reveal trailers, E3 demos, and Gamescom concerts. But the thing is, for this game, there was no marketing. On January 25th, 2023, Xbox and Bethesda hosted a developer direct, which gave a few looks at some of Xbox's upcoming games. While the logo for the game was leaked a day early, the game was intended to be a surprise. In the same livestream, they revealed that Hi-Fi Rush would be released on the same day. Hi-Fi Rush received generally favorable reviews, garnering a 9 out of 10 on IGN and GameSpot, 89 on Metacritic, and a 69 on PC Gamer? What? Critics said that while there's some repetitive level design and clunky platforming, the game is oozing with style and confidence. One critic called it Tango Gameworks' most confident, stylish, and surprising project to date. However, PC Gamer called the game interesting but dull, and the setlist that accompanies the soundtrack limits the game by being too dated. Hi-Fi Rush is currently available on Xbox Game Pass for Xbox and PC. It's also on the Xbox Store, Steam, and the Epic Games Store for $30. The game also comes in a deluxe edition for $40, which contains cosmetics for the main character and some in-game currency. Also, so far there have been 3 major post-launch updates. The first, on March 1st, added photo mode. The second, on April 10th, added the Boss Play costume pack, allowing every playable character to dress up as the bosses of Hi-Fi Rush. On June 12th, the Arcade Challenger update was announced with a July 5th release date. This update included 2 new game modes, Power Up, Tower Up, and BPM Rush, a new traditional garb costume pack, as well as extra photo mode filters and cosmetics. With that out of the way, let's go. The game opens up with a poster that advertises something called Project Armstrong. We also meet our lovable protagonist, Chai. Yes, Chai is in the drink. One thing to note is that throughout the opening, Chai will have his right arm inside of a scarf sling. When asked about this on Twitter, John Johannes confirmed that Chai had some sort of nerve damage that limited mobility in his arm, so he didn't simply break his arm or anything. When called up by the receptionist, a robot named Lucille, he says his profession is future rock star. After sufficiently embarrassing himself, Lucille gives Chai a Project Armstrong pass and welcomes him into Vandalay campus. One thing to note is that this game has quite a few 2D animated cutscenes, and the transitions between 2D and 3D cutscenes are always fucking spectacular. While wandering through the streets, an announcer lady can be heard advertising Project Armstrong and explains that it's a project that gives humans robotic modifications. Inside the Project Armstrong entrance, the man who is so obviously going to be the final boss emerges. This is Kale Vandalay, the CEO of Vandalay Technologies. After Kale leaves, Chai sneaks his way through the crowd and into the facility. After changing into a surgical outfit and discarding his iPod Shuffle, Kale can be seen talking to 2 people, one we've seen earlier. These are Rekka, the head of production, and Mimosa, the head of marketing. Kale says he wanted actual promising test subjects, but he sees all the current ones as losers. Mimosa shrugs this off by saying that production wanted test subjects and they delivered. Kale says there better not be any slip-ups or defects, and then tosses Chai's iPod Shuffle off of the catwalk where it lands onto Chai. After his procedure, Chai gets flung to the wall and has to find his way out. Chai now has a robotic arm replacing his disabled one. He eventually reaches his belongings and puts his clothes back on. Once he steps outside, a group of guard robots stop Chai and attempt to arrest him on grounds that he's a defect. His magnetic waste management arm pulls out a stick and the guards assume it's a weapon. One guard hits him in the chest, which triggers the iPod Shuffle embedded inside him. His magnetic arm then pulls in some nuts and bolts that were lying on the floor and actually becomes a weapon. Chai then fights the guards. After clearing his first combat encounter, Chai starts to put together the pieces. His iPod is in his chest and it directly powers his robot arm. It's also making everything in the world sync to the beat of the music, probably just for him. Chai then gets transported to a stage where an unknown announcer teaches him the basics of combat.
Is this the guy?
After the tutorial, a couple more guard bots appear. Once they draw their blades, he draws his trash guitar and the duel commences. While walking in the courtyard, projections of Rekka appear. She says that there's reports of a defect running around campus. I wonder who it is. She orders a manhunt on Chai, telling her robots to kill on sight. While taking the back route, Chai can come across a Samsung smart fridge named Smidge. This is a tutorial bot that can teach the player about some more in-depth mechanics. After exploring some more, a group of guard robots are standing around a robotic cat, thinking they're the defect. The cat escapes and Chai beats the guards. Higher up, someone starts yelling at Chai, thanking him for saving her cat.
Yep. Looking to get out of here!
Well, that might be something I can handle if you...
Hey! Yelling like this is awkward! Can you speed this up?
Fine.
She tells Chai that the access panel was hacked and he can climb up to that window. He enters the room where the voice came from and gets formally introduced to the quirky and marketable animal sidekick 808, named after the Roland TR-808. Fun fact about the little logo on her collar, it's Japanese and translates to Hibiki, This was the original alpha name for Hi-Fi Rush, the name of an unlockable special attack, and it's also the name of the executable in the files. Also, the design is stylized to look like the logo for the metal band Metallica. The cat lady starts talking to Chai through 808 and says that he'll need her help, but as soon as Chai sets his robot hand on 808, the two are completely synchronized. This puts Chai into another tutorial, this one for beat hits. The cat lady reluctantly lets Chai borrow 808 for the time being, and for the sake of simplicity I'll just refer to the cat lady as 808 as well until her name gets revealed. Chai opens a door and gets shot up to the peak of Vandelay campus. 808 tells him that he's in the production department and the only direct exit is through quality assurance.
So many buildings, it's hard to tell.
It's the one that literally says QA Center on it.
Oh yeah, that one.
Despite it being dangerous, Chai wants to go through QA. Eventually, he jumps on top of some coolant tubes that collapse. 808 also says that she's interested in the secrets that Vandelay Tech is hiding. Chai also reaches a room for battery production and has to avoid some lasers. After it's complete, he haphazardly touches an exposed battery. Instead of killing him, he gets powered up and unlocks the reverb gauge and special attacks. He reaches a storage unit, fights some guards, and enters the production facility. At one point, the power goes out, so he has to activate the generators. After a while, he reaches a QA check center advertised as an exit. Despite 808 knowing it's a trap, Chai charges in and Rekka shows up. She points out the Project Armstrong EULA and says that defects get recalled. She says her QA is the best in the business and the platform starts to rise. Now Chai has to fight the boss whose entire gimmick is 9-inch nails, QA 1 mil.
I like defense.
That's good?
I like how they taste.
Oh, that's bad.
After the fight, the platform collapses and QA starts a self-destruct sequence that nearly kills Chai. 808 and Chai jump down the hole that was created by QA. The two explore some sewers and eventually reach a door. Chai follows 808 into the room and gets caught in a trap and hangs off the ceiling. We then meet the actual cat lady, Peppermint. She inspects the iPod shuffle in his chest and introduces herself to Chai. Peppermint shoots the rope and sets Chai free. She agrees to help Chai escape the campus if he helps her investigate something called Spectra. She says that the campus is incredibly complex and Chai will need her help to escape. She again agrees to help Chai get off the campus if he helps her. Before heading out to the next mission, Peppermint introduces Chai to her shop where you can buy upgrades, more on this later. The last tab is locked off and Peppermint says it's in pre-pro. She then runs through her big plan. Spectra is a top secret program and only the heads of the departments have access to it. She and Chai are aiming for the production head's office. Rekka should be busy cleaning up the mess from the QA fight, so she'll be out of her office. The two can access the computers, steal the files, and then make a clean getaway. Peppermint says she's also going to look more into Chai's tech to sync up with it.
I'm here, baby.
Who are you talking to?
Once Chai and 808 arrive at the production facility, Peppermint points his attention to Rekka's office and tells him to keep a low profile. Chai enters the building and finds a statue of Kale and the previous CEO, Roxanne Vandelay. Peppermint then chastises him for not remembering her name. Chai then immediately blows his cover, and as soon as he does, Rekka reveals herself. He later reaches Area 1 and comes across a bridge so that he can't jump across. Peppermint says that his robotic arm is magnetic, so he'll be able to grapple to the other end of the bridge. After clearing a fight in Area 2, Peppermint tells Chai to find a back route and he points out an open vent. He explores the vent, clears Area 3, and enters Area 4. Inside, Peppermint shows up as a hacked Vandelay monitor, able to give him more upgrades. Later, Chai asks her what Spectra is really about, and she says that her informant told her it's an AI that's in all Project Armstrong robotics. It's a red flag because Vandelay never kept any of their projects under wraps this much. Chai gets mad that Peppermint is making him do all this because of some unconfirmed leaks and immediately dismisses it, knowing he's out of here either way. Chai clears area after area after area and eventually gets jump scared by Rekka. Now the facility is on lockdown. Peppermint tells Chai about a back route he can take, but he decides to grapple onto a magnet and go for a joyride. He speeds through each of the facilities and avoids storage containers. Then we get another 2D cutscene. Peppermint says that Chai's been spotted and Rekka, using a fourth wall break, drops a bomb onto the rail. Chai and 808 crash through a window and actually end up extremely close to Rekka's office. Eventually, Chai hits an electrical barrier that he can't Ooga Booga caveman his way through. That's when Peppermint teaches him a new lesson. She can use temporal displacement to appear right next to Chai for a short period and shoot the electric wall. She can also shoot faraway buttons and activate mechanisms for Chai. Also, she can shoot an enemy's electric barrier and disable it. Chai clears more and more areas I couldn't keep track of and can complete a side mission involving killing pigeons. Also, the two unnecessarily start an argument over their plan failing. Right before this stage's boss, you can find two robots to interact with. These are Seb AAA and JSF001. They're HR units that are investigating HR matters throughout the game. I bring this up because these two are direct references to Sebastian Castellanos and Joseph Oda, two major characters in The Evil Within. In subsequent stages, you can find these two in obscure areas and just unlock dialogue options. Chai and 808 then step into an arena where an off-screen hype man introduces Rekka. After yelling at Chai for long enough, she takes her gloves off and reveals two steam-powered arms.
You're paying me double for this.
But I'm not paying you anything.
Hey!
The two then get ready to rumble. At the start of her second phase, she jumps onto an electrical panel, rips the door off and throws it at Chai. She then tears the cords and powers herself up. At the start of her third phase, she pulls some steel pipes off the wall and despite only holding two, throws about 20 at Chai. At the end of the fight, Chai rushes to a beaten down Rekka and absolutely demolishes her. Rekka drops her reboot card and Peppermint picks it up.
Whoa, this is crazy. Looks like we found our AI.
This is a screensaver, Chai.
She runs over to Rekka's computer, unlocks it, and finds restricted Spectre files, which say that Vandelay can have direct access to people's minds. While reading this, a ringtone can be heard and Chai presses a big red button which actually answers a call. Here, we get formally introduced to the rest of the department heads. Corsica, the head of security, Roquefort, the head of finance, Kale Vandelay, the CEO, Mimosa, the head of marketing, and Zanzo, the head of R&D.
Zanzo, I think you're muted, honey.
Oh, I was going to say...
Chai starts gloating and all the department heads are mocking him. After Kale sends Corsica's forces to production, Chai tells him that he and Peppermint are going to kick its ass. Name-dropping Peppermint makes her angry, so she hangs up and kicks Chai's ass down a nearby hole. Back at the hideout, Peppermint is chastising Chai for what he did and he's as brain-dead as ever. She eventually demonstrates what Spectre is capable of. She gets 808 to plug something into Chai which controls him into saying a scripted line. After the demo, he tries to leave, but Peppermint scares him into staying.
Wish you good luck.
Chai?
But I have no idea how to get off this island and feel a little responsible for messing things up.
Great. You're hereby a member of my organization.
Cool. Our own little weird indie three-piece.
Before heading out, Peppermint shows Chai a new upgrade he can use. Using broken Armstrong parts, he can collect and upgrade chips, which allow for passive abilities. More on these later. After that mini tutorial, Peppermint runs through her new plan with Chai. According to the files she stole earlier, Spectre is a multifaceted cognitive AI algorithm. All AI development occurs in the R&D branch. This R&D branch is deep below the surface, using the Earth's magma as a power source. This gives Peppermint and Chai the element of surprise. We then get an alarming glimpse into Zanzo's entire character. He's described as a perfectionist, constantly canceling projects with even minor errors and burning through his budget quickly. He's also modded himself to directly input his creative ideas into the work pipeline. So far, the team's plan is to sneak into R&D, download and destroy Spectre, and GTFO. We then begin track 3 with Chai falling into the work center. Peppermint interrupts Corsica by saying that his ticket for entry should be the R&D's area of expansion. After one fight and one repair generator, Chai enters the main workstation. After another fight, the volcano in the middle of the workstation erupts, presenting another obstacle. Chai rides another zipline, clears another fight, and again rides another zipline. This one takes him to the R&D department building where Roquefort and Zanzo can be heard arguing about R&D's reckless spending. He enters the building and is presented with a problem. The Lucille bot nearby announces the transfer of all magma power to Lab 44. This temporarily takes the AI labs out of commission. She tells Chai to go to Lab 44 and complain about this to them. He enters the lab and is scanned by a laser wall. His projection on the wall is scrambled and at 480p. Zanzo says to start this room's test anyway, which spawns in some security lasers. At this point, Chai blacks out and enters another tutorial, this one showcasing the parry.
My man, it only gets harder from here, so stay on your feet. All right, how about we get back to it?
Chai, did you just black out?
Maybe, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Watch this.
He parries the security lasers and completes the test. In the second room, Zanzo tricks Chai into stepping on a trap, freezing him in place. This prompts a second parry tutorial. He clears it and tries to advance, but an unknown entity is hacking the facility. Peppermint receives an email from the hacker which tells Chai to use the Cybro. Chai reaches the third testing room, which is an endurance test. He passes the test with flying colors, but the identity of the hacker is still unknown. After exploring some more, Chai reaches another section of R&D where he comes face to face with Jonathan Joestar.
Mr. Chai, was it? That's Mr. Chai to you.
That's what I just called you.
Okay then.
He says that the defects Chai has are intriguing and that he wants to test his combat skills further. He fights a bunch of enemies and Zanzo pulls out his trump card, a brand new invention called Z-shielding. Chai tries his best to break the Z-shielding to no avail. Nearing the end of his ropes, he has one final plan to rizz up the robot. I'm not joking.
Look, man, I think we have more in common than we do apart. How about...
God, I hope that word isn't outdated by the time this video releases. After getting sucker punched through 7 different walls, he falls onto a glass floor which breaks. While cornered, a mysterious figure with red glowing eyes approaches him. In an admittedly clever previously on gag, the individual is revealed to just be a normal guy. A robot starts laying the hard truth onto Chai, telling him that he lacks leadership. This guy introduces the robot as Cinnamon, an AI that tells the truth no matter how painful. Peppermint then rushes into the room and introduces the new guy as Macaron. Macaron was Peppermint's inside source the entire time, the test lab's hacker, and the previous head of R&D under Roxanne Vandelay. He's dedicated his life to the company and now feels he can show off his dedication. Macaron tries to suggest going the pacifist route, but this falls on deaf ears. He says he doesn't want to fight anyone. Chai then questions him about having a punching bag, and Macaron is provoked by a Zanzo poster.
Zanzo!
He punches the poster and the wall, which was made of Z-shielding. Chai and Peppermint now realize they have a direct counter to Z-shielding. Before heading out, Macaron wants to talk to Chai about a new upgrade for him. Peppermint is busy, so he'll be taking over her role for providing upgrades for Chai. Here, he shows him how he can get his chips upgraded. With this now established, they run through their new plan. For now, they want to get back on track to accessing the AI labs. Currently, Zanzo thinks Chai is dead. They also now have a way to defeat the Z-shielding robot from earlier. Peppermint will configure 808 to call Macaron in. Macaron's lab is also located under the AI labs, so all they have to do is go up. Chai exits Macaron's lab and heads out. He eventually finds an obviously breakable wall. Peppermint says she finished 808's configuration and Chai can now call in Macaron to break the wall. After some time, Chai reaches the drill area again and has to climb it up to reach Lab 01. Macaron mentions that he was looking into Spectra and all access was restricted to only the department heads. However, Corsica only has limited access to Spectra, which confuses Peppermint. Zanzo also starts a brand new project and kicks into overdrive. Chai pulls up and gets ready to fuck up the Z-shielding robot, which he does with ease thanks to Macaron. After this fight, Chai can find another Smidge model and Macaron mentions that this is actually one of his models. After some time, the team reaches a dead end. The AI labs are locked and there isn't any way to break the door. After Peppermint leaves to take a personality test, Chai enters the AR labs thinking it's close enough. He enters the first lab and Zanzo appears on screen. He's mad that Chai beat the Z-shielding robot without letting him watch, so he wants to recreate that scene. He does so, but adds a few extra parameters like dimming the lights. After some time, the simulation is overloaded because Zanzo is on a tight budget. This reveals the computer powering it all, allowing Chai to break it. Destroying this simulation costs Zanzo a quarter of his budget, which gives Peppermint an idea. Now their goal is to get Chai to tease Zanzo enough to make him completely drain R&D's budget. At the top left, Peppermint projects a bar that shows how much money Zanzo is working with that'll gradually deplete over time. Chai enters the second lab and starts goading Zanzo. He recreates the third test from Lab 44 but creates an entirely new robot that slows the simulation. After this fight, the projection lens is exposed and Chai wrecks it, breaking the simulation. He also makes fun of Zanzo for not having an epic set piece, giving him another way to drain his budget. Macaron mentions how Zanzo never understood Roxanne's vision for Vandalay like he did. He just went along with Kale as long as he got what he wanted. Peppermint also mentions how Zanzo's lab is directly behind the next and final AR lab. We enter the third AR lab, and much to the dismay of all the programmers, Zanzo activates the big set piece Chai wanted originally. Chai makes fun of his hologram for being tiny and starts chasing the gift basket from Lab 44. A giant Zanzo creates a giant volcano, and Chai rides another magnetic rail to the gift basket. However, Zanzo flicks it away.
Want this?
The gift basket!
Guy?
At this point, Zanzo's budget is near non-existent, and the simulation is collapsing. Chai breaks the projection lens and he hops into Zanzo's lab. Zanzo says that while Chai was busy with the AR simulations, he was working on a new project, which he reveals to be a giant mech. Giant cords appear from the ceiling and directly link to his brain. He starts to finish the assembly and Peppermint projects his budget. However, right before the head is placed onto the body, Zanzo becomes...
Defunded?
Fun fact, this screen is actually a parody of the game's own Game Over screen. Zanzo tries to kill Chai, but Chai pushes him back, he flies into some computers, and Peppermint picks up his reboot card.
Okay. Zanzo would have hit any information on Spectra. It's most likely in a password-protected database decrypted with a...
Here it is, right on the desktop.
Oh.
Peppermint reads through Spectra's files and she says that they plan for complete mind control and it's apparently been approved for activation. According to the files, Spectra can only be shut down with the reboot cards of all 6 bosses. Currently they only have 2, those of Rekka and Zanzo. Then suddenly Corsica and Kale show up. Chai makes it clear that nobody's going to control his mind and Kale just shrugs it off. Then, while Kale berates Corsica for asking a stupid question, Chai gets everyone huddled up and says that he has a plan to escape. The group then runs to the window, Chai breaks it with his guitar, and everyone jumps. He tells everyone to run back to the hideout while he splits up. He then zips and zooms through the best set piece this game has to offer. He detours at some shipping areas, fights some enemies, and nearly avoids death. He rides more magnets, avoids more enemies, and finally reaches the end. Until Kale and Corsica catch up. Kale starts taunting Chai and again berates Corsica for only catching one person. He kicks Chai's guitar into the lava and Corsica knocks him out. We then return to the hideout. If the player tries to talk to Cinnamon, Macaron, and Peppermint, they should notice that their overall demeanor is much different and they're constantly sucking his dick. If they rest on the couch, the gang will spell out what should have been obvious. Chai is dreaming all of this and needs to snap out of it. Everyone starts snapping their fingers to the beat of some jazz music, and 808 makes an obscure movie reference that confused both Chai and me. Peppermint then reminds Chai that he got caught by Corsica, then Chai wakes up. Everyone was only snapping because Corsica was trying to wake him up. She tries to make the interrogation simple, but Chai tells her to shut down Spectra. She doesn't understand why everyone is so focused on it, because to her it's a simple firmware update. Chai tries to tell her it's a mind control AI, but she won't listen. He also lets her know that she's the only boss without full access to Spectra, which confuses her. She tells him that he has to come clean tomorrow and leaves. He's trying to look for a way out until something starts crawling through the vents. Turns out the mysterious... Fucking hell. What the fuck have I been writing? Turns out the mysterious sus and... Turns out the mysterious sus imposter is none other than 808 coming back with his guitar pipe. We then cut to a scrub bot cleaning the hallway until Chai busts his way through the door. Chai asks Peppermint to run through the plan again, which she does reluctantly. Chai has to find Corsica and get her Spectra password. Eventually, Chai gets caught by one of Zanzo's security lasers and is presented with a new recurring obstacle. Corsica makes a PA announcement telling everyone there's a security destabilization in Wing 1. She's currently preoccupied, so she sends any available repair units to fix it. Chai enters Wing 1, but a nearby Tech 78 bot stops him. The bot confuses Chai for the repair units Corsica sent to fix the system. Peppermint forces Chai to play along, starting a long line of hard labor. Tech 78 says that the central elevator won't move until security nodes are connected. There's 3 rooms containing the nodes he has to connect. Macaron mentions how the central elevator connects to the lift, which will take Chai to Corsica's wing. Chai eventually reaches the second room, the first and third are locked right now, and fights some robots. One of the nodes is out of sync with the rest of them, which Peppermint remedies with her blaster. Chai climbs to the top and finds a large node, which he beats into gear. Now that the first node is connected, the other 2 can be accessed. After some time, Chai activates the third node and moves to the first. While activating the first node, one of the smaller nodes falls out from the wall and Macaron punches it back into place. If you didn't notice, throughout all this, I did skip like half an hour of content because it's all fights and puzzles. After the first node is activated, the door ends up locked, so Chai has to crawl through some vents to get back to the main room. He reaches the main room, and instead of thanking him for a job well done, Tech 78 makes fun of Chai's appearance. He starts to ride the elevator down to the lift, but is stopped by a horde of enemies. At the end of the ride, he walks through a hallway and receives praise from Corsica, and reaches the lift. The lift is full of Tech 78 bots. Chai tries to smoothly talk his way through them until a robot army confronts him.
Nah, this is the guy that fixed the security system, man.
Idiots! That's the defect!
He tries to fight his way through the robots, but the big green one knocks him back. Peppermint then shows up and takes care of the majority of them. Macaron shows up and beats the big green robot. While Chai is fighting the robot army, Peppermint kickstarts the lift. The ride starts off smooth, but he gets ambushed again. After the fight, the lift passes by some irresponsibly close construction debris. Kel better be thankful OSHA doesn't exist in this world or his ass would be grass. More long-range units try to shoot Chai but end up failing. After passing some more OSHA violations, Corsica orders the robots to pull the brakes on the lift. Since they're made with Z-shielding, Macaron can take care of them easily, which he does. After this whole ordeal, Macaron asks a good question.
So I was thinking, yeah, with no brakes, how we stop it?
Peppermint shows up and shoots a distant construction sign onto the tracks. The lift hits the sign, starts barreling towards Wing 2, and how the hell does Chai survive this? I get that suspension of disbelief is a thing, but his iPod shuffle did not give him immunity to motion sickness, let alone invulnerability in general.
Lift is running a bit late.
I'm sure they'll be here.
Huh. And with this, Chai, the supposed-to-be walking corpse, finally arrives in Security Wing 2. At the start of this track, Chai tries to find a back route to Wing 2 through construction, but is immediately jumped by some robots. Macaron suggests going through construction to find a back door. After Corsica asks if there's anyone to fix the decaf-only coffee machine, which is actually a recurring joke throughout the game, Macaron thinks Chai's planted seed about Spectra actually worked on her. Later, Peppermint gives another mission report. This time, Chai just has to go up. Corsica's office is at the top of Wing 2, so all he has to do is go up. She says there's a catch, but it's not about the route. According to Macaron, Chai can't just Oonga Booga caveman his way to Corsica's reboot card because she doesn't have one. She memorizes all of her passwords. In order for this to work, he has to get Corsica to cooperate with the team. Peppermint and Macaron are going to need time to brainstorm this. Once he enters Wing 2, Corsica cuts off elevator access, meaning Chai has to climb up the walls of the elevator. After Cinnamon analyzes Corsica's psych profile, Macaron says she joined Vandelay 6 months ago. Chai notices that she's been trying to prove herself to Kale throughout the course of the game. After some long and arduous climbing, Chai once again tries to get everyone to think of a plan. Macaron suggests mirroring Corsica's screen. After a Corsica jump scare and some more walking, Chai reaches the second section of Wing 2.
That's not bad.
Let me know when you decide to give up.
After climbing what's essentially the Mount Everest of corporations, Chai enters Corsica's room through the vents. The gang suggests speaking to her using facts and logic and not trying to provoke her. Chai is right above Corsica and the gang notices she's looking at Spectra files, but Chai is fantasizing to the point where the vent shaft breaks and he falls on top of her. Being provoked enough, she readies her sticks and thus begins her boss fight. The catch here, however, is that Chai can't actually fight her. He has to keep defending himself and parrying her attacks. At this point, he has an idea, to get her really mad and wear her down. After the first phase of her fight, she introduces a new move, wind attacks. Chai can't directly parry these attacks, so he has to dodge out of the way. Chai actually starts being reasonable and down to earth with her, and it starts to work. However, he calls her oblivious, not knowing what the word means. After surviving a relentless onslaught of attacks, he knocks her back and catches her. Chai needs an escape plan, so Macaron asks Cinnamon to grab the building schematics. Then we get to the best ongoing gag in the game.
Her personal lift. I'll reroute it to the hideout.
He starts to lift and then Corsica wakes up. She admits that Chai was right but says she'll handle it on her own. After Chai tries to get her to join them, Kale jump scares everyone and Obi-Wan Kenobi's himself into the lift. He hid Spectre from Corsica because he felt she didn't trust his vision. Chai says they're coming for him, but Kale retorts by saying that he's literally coming for them. A giant robot then rides to the lift to confront the two. He says his endgame is to secure Vandelay's future by freeing the consumers. The robot pulls out some laser beams, aims them at Corsica, and then fires both her and the lasers. However, Chai jumps in and grabs her before the laser destroys the lift. Corsica then wakes up to the sight of Dr. Cinnamon. She got robotic parts surgically inserted into her because her wounds were severe. She says she joined Vandelay because she believed it was the only one doing things right. Her belief was shaken when she read the Spectre files. She swears he won't get away with what he did to her and officially joins the team and actually has a plan for the next step. Alright, so basically I fucked up the recording for the rest of the story levels. It recorded the video, but I forgot to set the audio device so the video is entirely muted. Look, it was 3 in the morning, okay? Just know that I'll probably have to nab some videos from YouTube for make up for the segments I can't add. Corsica runs through her game plan. Their next target is Mimosa. She's currently on campus preparing for the apparent Project Armstrong festival. The goal is to take the back route to the festival through the Vandelay Museum, since all the security will be at the festival. Mimosa is making sure that nobody misses her concert, so the museum should be completely vacant. In the meantime, Peppermint will sync 808 up with Corsica's new enhancements. The gang arrives at the campus and laments on the state of the company. Chai then enters the concert venue. Here, Peppermint says this line, and keep in mind, this is important. In the background, Mimosa can be heard advertising the concert. Chai reaches the back group but is presented with a wall of fire. Now Corsica can show off her abilities. She can create gusts of wind and get rid of any sort of fire. After exploring and reaching the courtyard of the museum, a fire robot shows up and with Corsica's help, Chai defeats it. Once inside the museum, he has to explore through the main exhibits. He explores the museum and kills more robots and eventually reaches the first exhibit. This one is focused on telling the story of Roxanne Vandelay when the company was just a startup. Peppermint brings up the absent fact that Roxanne's robotics led to the end of a global energy crisis. He reaches the next exhibit where Mimosa says that Vandelay eventually became the world's biggest supplier of robotics. Macaron laments on the good old days, saying the company now feels much different. In the next room, Mimosa shows up through some screens and is surprised by the current state of affairs. With the museum on lockdown, Chai has to find another back route. After finding a reference to the Saturn devouring his sun painting, Corsica shows off her generator overheating skills. After some time has passed, Chai reaches the museum's power supply. I'm gonna skip a majority of this section because it's just puzzles. Eventually, he reaches the roof of the exhibit. He walks across all the steel beams and finds a giant platform. Too many enemies are on the platform and it collapses. Peppermint seems more annoyed than usual, which Chai is quick to point out. At the third exhibit, Mimosa narrates that Roxanne retired and gave the company to Kale, her only child. Peppermint is quick to point out that this is also a big lie and says that he forced her out. After a small talk with Mimosa, Chai opens the door and meets up with the rest of the gang. They then reach the final exhibit. This one says that Kale started Project Armstrong as a vision for the future. This project started development on the first human limb. Peppermint tears off cardboard Kale and starts stomping on it, screaming that Roxanne did all the hard work. She also says that she ran away from her family when she shouldn't have. She says Kale didn't develop the tech because her robotic leg was made by Roxanne, her mother. This makes Kale her brother. She thinks everyone hates her now, but they're quick to disagree. They can also overhear fireworks from upstairs.
'Cause I love you, 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 I love you,
You wanna go crash a party?
I'd like that. You know, I really wanted to say that crashing the party line since we got here. But it's okay. You can have it.
Alright.
The plan is for Chai to run backstage to Mimosa's dressing room and fuck her up with a surprise attack. He enters the backstage area, but Mimosa decides to leave the dressing room ASAP due to Chai escaping the museum. Now Chai has to improvise. Outside, some of Mimosa's assistants can be heard, and one of them mentions a left shark. This gives Chai the idea to dress up in one of the shark costumes. The assistants find him and carry him to the stage. At this point, subtlety is out the window and they just have to get her. While Mimosa is up on stage, Chai reaches a jump pad that he uses to enter the stage. At first, she's mad that Chai ruined the concert, but she turns this into an opportunity. After her assistants kick up the music, she reveals her dress to be sonic-powered wings. Before the start of the third phase, Mimosa and Chai engage at a dance battle. After some failed rhythm parry attacks, Mimosa is beaten to the ground. Chai launches her to the stratosphere and she explodes. With the reboot card in Peppermint's hands and the electricity rerouted, the gang turns off the lights and make their escape. Hollowkill shows up, unable to find them. He then tells this robot to shut the entire campus down.
Which section, sir?
All of them!
I am like 80% sure that's a movie reference. In the next scene, Kale can be seen talking to Roquefort, who says it's just the two of them now. This scene is really just set up to the next coffee joke of the game.
Care of it. Now, might I suggest pushing plans forward?
After I get a coffee.
We shut down the cafe.
When I said close the campus down, I didn't mean the cafe!
You said close down everything.
But not coffee, Roquefort, not coffee. You always need coffee for things like this. Open the cafe.
Oh, he also says to accelerate the Spectre plans, but that's not really important. Back in the hideout, Corsica says that security has formed a giant ring around Vandalay Tower. Macaron mentions that they don't have any heavy artillery they can use to breach it, which gives Chai an idea. Track 10 starts off with none other than a Xenogears reference. Seriously, there are so many references in this game, I'll be surprised if somebody knows every single one of them. Anyway, now for Chai's idea. Referring back to what Peppermint said earlier, his plan is to launch himself out of a cannon straight into Roquefort's office. Everyone reluctantly decides to help him. Chai reaches a cannon that's near Vandalay Tower. He has Cinnamon calibrate himself to the cannon, but he needs to wait a bit. After a bunch of fighting and calibrating, the cannon is perfectly aligned to Roquefort's office.
This is the greatest plan ever!
This is the dumbest plan ever. Let's hope this works.
Instead of dying like Puss in Boots did in that one movie, Chai bounces off a nearby blimp. Cinnamon does some quick calculations and realizes that Chai will still land in the tower, just not the original destination. He crashes into the tower's cafe, and we get the funniest scene in the game.
Well, I'm in. I hope no one noticed. Crap.
After some intense fighting with invaders Must Die as the backing tune, the gang helps Chai escape to the top level of the cafe. He fights the chef reskin of the samurai robot and proceeds onward. After Smitch's heroic sacrifice and some generator fuckery, Chai enters the atrium. Corsica points him towards Roquefort's office. However, on his way he gets jumped by a bird robot and flung down to the bottom. Eventually he gets caught by the bird robot and carried to the Kale statue. After killing it, Macaron pops up and punches the head of the statue out of the way. Outside Roquefort's office, a phone starts ringing. Chai picks it up and Roquefort answers and threatens him. On his way into the office, Corsica calls him a wolf in sheep's clothing, which is important. Chai walks up to Roquefort and he tells Chai that he was near death when Kale fixed him. He also says that time is money and Chai is wasting his time, so he pulls out his trump card. The displays leave the office and he turns into a giant werewolf.
Don't say it, don't think it. Don't say it! Don't think it! 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 Don't say it! Don't think it!
With this, Roquefort's fight begins. After the first phase, Roquefort retreats into his wolf form and throws Chai into a nearby boat. After the second phase, Roquefort mentions the profit Spectra could provide for Vandelay, and after another shitty pun, he gets launched into a giant pile of gold. He then re-emerges, re-enters his wolf form, and continues the fight. After the third phase, he tells Chai that no matter how hard he tries, he can't be beaten. However, while goading Chai, the quarter's profits directly fall onto Roquefort, killing him and dropping his reboot card. Outside Roquefort's office, the gang groups up and prepares for their final assault. With the stakes set, Chai pulls a vibe check on everyone and they enter the elevator. On the elevator, everyone is realistically worried about their upcoming fight. Chai and Peppermint have a one-on-one and the elevator reaches Kale's office. The doors open and they find Roxanne Vandelay? Everyone approaches Roxanne, but as soon as they get close, a barrier traps them. Peppermint tries to tell Roxanne about Spectra, but not only does she already know about it, she's fallen victim to it. Kale shows up to the scene and says he wouldn't have been CEO without mind-controlling Roxanne. He says Spectra is meant to nudge people into Vandelay's ecosystem, meaning this is all just an unethical plan to sell more shit. Kale then taunts Chai for enrolling in Project Armstrong in the first place and says that Chai will only help him bring in more customers. Peppermint reminds Kale of what the original intention of Project Armstrong was, but that falls on deaf ears. He says it's time for a Spectra test run and leaves. Chai tries to break the barrier but only breaks his guitar. He then starts to doubt himself, believing he really is nothing without his robotic arm. Everyone backs him up and Cinnamon says that the barrier is a harmonic force field. Chai, realizing harmonic means sound, believes he can synchronize himself with the barrier and attempt to overload it. He places his hand on the barrier and begins to sync himself with it. During this rhythm section, Chai remembers the things the gang said to him, boosting his morale. After being perfectly in sync, Chai breaks the barrier.
I don't need a guitar. I am a rock star.
I thought you said you didn't need a guitar.
Yeah, but this is much cooler.
The gang breaks through the window and after a sort of badass entrance, Kale orders the Tech-78 bots to stop them. In their infinite wisdom, they pull back the bridge. Chai starts to navigate around the absent bridge but finds a dead end. Peppermint shoots down the gate and the rest of the gang proceeds to help Chai through various roadblocks. He reaches the other side and fights some enemies. He finds and rides a grind rail and flies into a cargo box. Cinnamon pilots the box and at the cost of a couple of ribs throws Chai through a wall. He explores some more and eventually gets jump scared by Zanzo's robot. Yeah, Kale finished producing what Zanzo couldn't and is now using it against Chai. He escapes, fights some robots and escapes some more. While nearly avoiding death by robot laser beams, he tries to group back up with the rest of the group. With Macaron's help, Chai escapes the robot's fury. Meanwhile, Cinnamon mentions a potential critical weak point. Unfortunately, Chai gets sucker punched by the robot and forced to fight some more. Peppermint, Corsica, and Macaron distract the robot and Chai runs under the surface. He finds a jump pad and uses it to blast himself up to the robot's arm and cut it off. While everyone's grouped up, Macaron notices that Cinnamon is absent. Down below, Cinnamon can be seen running to the robot arm, believing it's finally time for him to be helpful. Once he reaches the arm, he realizes he's compatible with the arm. With help from the rest of the gang, Cinnamon fires the arm back at the robot and using the power of friendship, rhythm, and plasma energy, Cinnamon destroys the robot in a badass fashion. A broken Cinnamon is lying on the ground and...
Was I dope, Mr. Chai?
That was very dope, Cinnamon. Man, he is messed up.
Have I mentioned how unironically funny this game is? With Cinnamon's reassurance, the rest of the gang prepares to finally take on Kale. Arriving in Spectra's control room, the gang confronts Kale. He starts his villain monologue all about Vision and decides it's time to put the band on a 6-year hiatus. He traps everyone else behind another harmonic force barrier and reveals a robotic body. He activates Spectra and mind controls Chai. However, 808 comes to the rescue and attacks Kale. Kale then grabs Chai and... Whoa, what the hell? Chai is 25 years old. I get that Kale is 80% steel, but how the hell can he fling someone like that far? Kale brings out an energy sword and is ready to murder a cat, albeit a robotic one. 808 perseveres and scratches Kale up enough to deactivate Chai's mind control. Kale decides to raise the platform he and Chai are standing on, which leads them outside. Thus, Kale's boss fight begins. After the first phase, Kale forgets that he's fighting Chai and not Spider-Man. After the second phase, he absorbs some energy from these pillars and becomes Kale the Sword Saint. After the third phase, we get to see probably the rawest final boss sequence in gaming history.
Macaron! You've ruined this company enough. Come on, Corsica!
Can't believe I look
Up to you! Peppermint!
This isn't just about Bandolin.
And this is game over!
Despite being beaten, Kale still won't give up his reboot card. With the combined efforts of the team, Chai launches Kale into the computer, short-circuiting his armor and killing him. Peppermint places everyone's reboot cards into the computer, and... Alright, I'll admit, that got a laugh out of me. With this, Spectra is officially dead. Corsica shows off Cinnamon on her back, and we cut back to Kale's office. Now everyone is talking to Roxanne, without the mind control. Roxanne accepts Corsica as her head of security, and after a sweet reunion, welcomes Macaron back into R&D. Peppermint says she won't run away from home again, but Roxanne says she shouldn't change who she is. Chai tells her he doesn't think he fits any job description, but Roxanne suggests becoming a Project Armstrong ambassador. And that's the end of the game, bar some end credit scenes. The credits show Roxanne giving a speech in front of an audience, Peppermint fixing the old Vandalay truck on display in the museum, Corsica finally giving in to our decaf overlords, and Macaron performing open motherboard surgery on Cinnamon. Them and Peppermint are driving in the Vandalay truck and pick up Corsica. We also get to see another hint at a Peppermint and Corsica relationship. Despite the 9-year age gap, they're both consenting adults, so I have no problem with it. It's not like Brad Pitt dating someone literally half his age, that's kinda weird. On a rooftop, Chai and 808 are chilling while he's practicing his guitar. Peppermint tells him to meet up with them and he heads off. With everyone on board, they set off. On the ocean side, Chai says he has to learn guitar in case his Armstrong gig doesn't work out. And that's the end. Until Peppermint reveals there's more Spectre signals out in the wild. Kale must have had a backup plan in case something like this happened.
If only we had someone up to the task of checking those hotspots out.
Who are you implying?
You, Mr. Chai. I was implying you.
This ties into an endgame activity I'll explain later. It's unfortunately not sequel bait. And now that's Hi-Fi Rush. The best single word I can use to describe this game is charming. The rest of the games I've covered on this channel have been moderately to severely dark, and with the exception of Katana Zero, barely had any comedy at all. So to have a game with a story that's just chill fun is a breath of fresh air. The game can be serious when it wants to be, but for the most part it's only trying to be comedic. And apart from that, there are so many fun Easter eggs to find. Did you know that if you replay track 3 after beating the game and beat the Z-shielding robot with Macaron, Cinnamon and Peppermint will call you out for cheating?
Macaron, Mr. Chai, some Macaron has yet to join you. This is cheating.
Well, this messes everything up.
Do not be afraid. I will activate the cutscene as usual.
Did you know that if you use the Steal the Show move on Kale, he'll say he's a dog person?
You think that'll work? I'm a dog.
Did you know that if you quit the game during a boss fight, return to the hideout after choosing your save and talk to the characters, they'll berate you for it?
Peppermint, I thought we were in Macaron's lab going to take down Zanzo.
Oh, we are.
Not as far as I can see.
Yeah, you quit at an awkward time. Might want to sit on that couch and get back to where you were.
Did you know that Smidge is voiced by John Johannes?
For some people, the beat is hard to find, like inner peace. But here are some tips. Your attacks always land on the beat. And since it's beneficial to attack on the beat, pressing the attack button again when your hit strikes is the perfect time.
Did you know that almost everyone's names can be connected to food? Chai is the word for tea in multiple languages.
What did you just say? Chai means tea, bro!
Peppermint is an herb used as a common flavor. Cinnamon is a spice. Corsica can be connected to Corsican pear spice. Macaron can be connected to a macaroon. Mimosa is a cocktail. Reka ramen is a type of spicy ramen. Kale is a type of cabbage. Did you know that this opening scene for track 10?
Woo! What a wild battle! I wish you could have seen it.
I can't believe you survived that!
That was the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, let's never mention this again. But hey, I'm here now.
It's actually meant to tell the player that an entire stage was cut from the game. Did you know? Without getting too ahead of myself, the game is chock full of surprises and Easter eggs, and I'm still discovering all these months later. Like I said, this is just incredibly charming, and I loved almost every second of it. As always, let's start with the UI. At the top left, you can see your health bar, and right above it, your reverb gauge. Next to those, you'll see an icon indicating which special attack you have equipped. Directly under those two, you can see Peppermint, Corsica, and Macaron's icons indicating which character you have on standby. During combat, you'll see your combat ranking at the top right, under it your score, next to it your combo counter and any bonuses you might earn. Despite being a hack and slash, Hi-Fi Rush is at its forefront a rhythm game. Every move you make has to be in sync with the music, such as attacking, evading, jumping, and grappling. However, unlike Metal Hellsinger, every move you perform will land on the beat no matter what, but perfectly timing it will increase its efficiency, such as bonus damage or extra height when jumping. But another thing to note is that the game has a problem with the BPM being inconsistent across an entire stage, especially when pausing and resuming, so just keep that in mind. If you need to visualize the beat, you can turn on Rhythm Assist, which will give you a meter to reference. Alternatively, every single part of the environment and UI follow the beat, so use your surroundings to match the beat. Also, this is a fun fact I want to mention that I found on the Hi-Fi Rush subreddit. When perfectly timing an attack, you can hear these sound effects. These sounds were probably sampled from Tucci, a song from the soundtrack of Season 1 of Attack on Titan. Chai has many combo strings that could be unlocked using gears to in-game currency. These combo strings let you mix and match the light and heavy attack to various degrees. At the end of a combo string, you can perform what's called a beat hit. Perfectly timing a beat hit will deal a devastating blow to the enemy or increase the efficiency of a special attack like Pick Me Up. Some enemies are more powerful than others. Bigger enemies will have a stun meter, making them immune to stagger until the meter is broken, after which they're stunned for a short period. Some will also have an added layer of protection, such as Z-shielding and energy barriers, which will require Macaron and Peppermint respectively to break them. Chai's only two defensive options are evading and parrying, which is unlocked in track 3. Evading on the beat will allow you to evade 3 times in quick succession, and parrying on the beat will allow you to deflect an attack. You can also evade and parry in the air. Chai also has a grapple in his magnetic arm. In combat, you'll be able to directly grapple enemies to close the distance. Hi-Fi Rush follows the combat ranking system that Devil May Cry invented. The game encourages you to use as many combo strings as possible and penalizes you whenever you use the same string multiple times. The ranks you can earn are D, C, B, A, and S. At the end of a fight, you'll earn some scores with some bonuses for your ranking, your rhythm timing, your clear time, and how much reverb was left. Chips are a form of upgrade present in Hi-Fi Rush. Chai can collect and upgrade chips which serve different functionalities and give himself upgrades. These can serve a wide variety of purposes like enhancing your companions, boosting battery pickups, and making gears easier to obtain. Each chip can be upgraded to 3 levels using gears and Armstrong circuits. You can buy additional chip slots from the shop and equip your chips that way. I want to be really specific when it comes to the rest of the categories, so I'll end the basics here. Chai can summon 3 companions in battle: Peppermint, Macaron, and Corsica. Each of these 3 companions serve different purposes, both in combat and in exploration. I'll start with what they all have in common and then mention what each of them can specifically do. In combat, pressing R2 will simply summon your companion to deal a simple attack. Pressing R2 during a beat hit will have them do a joint attack with Chai consuming reverb. This can also be done with an air combo. Holding R2 will let them perform a more powerful version of their normal attacks. After a successful parry, you can call on your friends to counterattack the enemy. Let's start with Peppermint. Her entire gimmick is range and using firearms. During exploration, Peppermint can shoot faraway buttons, unlocking environments for Chai. She can also shoot any energy barriers in your way. In combat, she can disable enemy energy barriers and shoot flying enemies. Switch Kicker can be performed on a beat hit combo and will have her kick enemies into the air. Master Blaster lets her fire what's essentially a railgun at the enemy. Cannon Spike will have her fire a cannon at the enemy, dealing significant barrier damage. Kick Shot allows her to jump kick and shoot the enemy after a parry, also dealing more barrier damage. Macaron's entire gimmick is crowd control and high damage at the cost of speed. During exploration, Macaron can break walls protected with Z-shielding and punch large rocks away to be used as platforms. During combat, Macaron can break through Z-shielding, keep crowds in check, and provide defense. Pressing R2 will drop Macaron onto an enemy and punch them once. Double Base Drop will have him perform a joint attack with Chai that ends with enemies being lifted. High Strung is an air joint attack that will send enemies to the ground. Gravity Well will create a force field that locks enemies inside of it. Doing this to bosses will just deal big damage. Love Tap allows him to punch the enemy twice after a parry, dealing significant damage to Z-shielding. Corsica's entire gimmick is dispersing fire and building up the enemy's stun gauge. During exploration, she can overheat generators and clear firewalls. During combat, she can extinguish fires made by enemies and rapidly build up an enemy's stun gauge. Pressing R2 will summon a small tornado to deal minor stun damage. High Security Risk will have her deal a joint attack with Chai. Tornado Lift will have her summon a tornado to keep an enemy suspended in the air. Corsica Typhoon will make her summon a larger tornado that carries smaller enemies away. High Alert will suspend enemies in the air after a parry. That's most of what you need to know about the companions in this game. During a fight, Chai can use special attacks to deal devastating damage to enemies around him. Special attacks cost portions of your reverb gauge. You can refill your reverb gauge by using overcharged tanks or collecting batteries dropped by fallen enemies. The game encourages you to use as much reverb as possible during a fight, as you will earn much more score at the end than if you didn't use any special attacks. Special attacks also have beat hits, so you can increase its destructive power, or with one special attack, its healing efficiency. Also, you can earn an upgrade that lets you equip 2 special attacks at once. Here I'll list all of the available special attacks in the game. Power Chord is the first one the player unlocks and lets Chai deal a flurry of attacks with his guitar. Guitar Ride lets you ride your guitar around and hit enemies in your path. Pick Me Up is a restorative, making Chai drink a can of Monster Energy that restores health. Pick Slide will let out a powerful riff that will stun enemies in front of you. High Pitch Punch will uppercut an enemy in front of you, launching them into the air. Air Guitar is an air version of Power Chord. Rip and Tear summons demonic arms to rip apart any enemies in front of Chai, though this doesn't damage barriers and shields. Also, the name of this ability is a reference to Doom 2016's soundtrack, and the description, again, references the Evil Within. With the amount of references they're making, we better be getting a third game. Double Riff has Chai team up with Peppermint to unleash a flurry of quick shots at the enemy. Barrier Wall lets Macaron summon a barrier wall in front of Chai. Twin Assault has Chai and Corsica do a joint set of flurry attacks that can be extended by mashing X. Steal the Show lets 808 do typical cat things and stun surrounding enemies. This has no effect on bosses apart from unlocking extra dialogue. Hollow Chai summons a decoy of Chai to distract enemies. This also has no effect on bosses. Hibiki is one of 2 special attacks that require you to perform the correct button inputs. This one, if timed perfectly, will unleash a devastating AoE attack. Overdrive Slash is the second one and has Chai unleash a series of slashes. Performing the beat hit will send the slashes forward. 808 Gigawatt Cat Attack deals the highest amount of damage and has 808 insta-kill any enemy it's in front of. This attack has a really short range though, so you'll have to be extremely close. Hi-Fi Rush is broken down into 12 stages, or tracks as the game calls them. Each track mechanically functions very similar to your run-of-the-mill ARPG. You walk through a somewhat linear platforming path and occasionally fight waves of enemies before proceeding. During these fight segments, you'll be locked in a small arena until all the enemies are defeated. Each track, with the exception of track 6, ends with you fighting a main boss either directly or just through platforming. Now let's talk about some of the goodies you can find in each track. In terms of collectibles, there's quite a few things you can find in each track. The first is broken pieces of life gauges. Collecting 4 pieces will permanently increase your vitality by 1. The reverb equivalent of this is reverb core pieces. Collecting 4 will permanently increase your reverb gauge by 1. There's another thing you can collect: health tank pieces. You can collect enough to build 3 health tanks, which when full will fully replenish your health upon being dealt a fatal blow. Not that kind of fatal blow. You can also find overcharged batteries, which will refill your reverb gauge when using it. You can also find Vandalay logs scattered around the campus, which will give the player additional lore. These are mostly presented as emails between staff, with one of them explaining the long-running decaf joke. In tracks 2, 5, and 8 you can find and complete mini side quests. In track 2 you can shoot some nearby pigeons. In track 5 you can destroy 10 drones that contain schematics for a Tech 78 bot. In track 8 you can search 3 trash bins in search of a golden can. There are also big spectre doors you can find throughout the campus, but I'm saving that for a later section. Now for the smaller collectibles. There will be 24 graffiti scattered across each track for you to collect. Collecting all 24 will reward you with Pimage, an artist variant of the Smidge model drawing Chai as a banana in your hideout. Hello ma'am, please do not rip me off this time.
Oh, hello, how can I help you with, how can I help you?
I would like 3 pounds of bananas, please. You can also shoot nearby announcement drones to shut everyone up. Finally, there are golden kale statues found in each track. Repeatedly attacking one will drop a plethora of gears for you. Everything I mentioned rewards achievements for finding all of them, so go for them if you want to. Now let's discuss what you can do after beating the game for the first time. For starters, you earn the level select so you can go back and replay different tracks. You also earn the Rhythm Master difficulty, one step above very hard. Apart from the enemies gaining increased health and damage, if your score falls below D, you'll get an instant game over. There's also the Wall of Fame, which technically is unlocked after stage 1 but serves more purpose after the game's completion. Here you can complete a plethora of challenges and get rewarded various things, including gears, Armstrong circuits, and tickets. Completing every single challenge on the Wall of Fame will earn you the Vandalay custom Hibiki Gold guitar. You'll also unlock costumes for everyone after the game, or if you've bought DLC outfits after the first track. Only a few of these costumes are locked behind microtransactions. These are the costumes included in the Deluxe Edition Upgrade Pack, the Boss Play Costume Pack, the Prime Gaming and Game Pass Ultimate Pack, and the Traditional Garb Costume Pack. The rest can either be bought with gears or earned for completing Wall of Fame challenges. If you remember Bloody Palace from the Devil May Cry series, you'll immediately recognize the Rhythm Tower you also unlock. Rhythm Tower is a challenge gauntlet that's split into 60 rounds. Each round is timed, though time is earned by beating enemies. After 5 rounds, you'll be able to sacrifice time to buy some upgrades, usually overcharged batteries or energy drinks. Every 10 rounds, you'll fight a main boss except for Track 7's Corsica fight. You'll fight in order QA1 Mill, Rekka, Mimosa, Roquefort, and Kale. Completing a Rhythm Tower run will reward you around 600,000 gears and a cosmetic for Chai when completing it once and twice. On the minor side of things, you'll unlock the Model Viewer, which will let you view 3D models of every single character, playable or NPC, in the game. You'll also earn the Jukebox, which you can use to play various songs from the original OST in the hideout. You can purchase models or songs using tickets earned from Wall of Fame challenges. Like I said, the ending of the main story teased these Spectra challenges and unfortunately not a sequel. After completing the game for the first time, you can access new Spectre doors which function similarly to the secret missions of the Devil May Cry. You're given a specific challenge to complete in a certain time frame, and there are 16 Spectre doors. Completing a challenge will give you one random award. The first one is located in track 1 shortly after you meet Peppermint. Jump to this platform next to the smidge bot and then jump down the ledge to the lower floor. After opening the first door, everyone warns Chai of the potential dangers ahead. This challenge is to defeat the enemies while staying off the ground. The reward here is 1 Armstrong circuit. After completing the first challenge, Peppermint will say that the image is starting to become unscrambled by a small margin. The gang were right about it being a backup protocol, but the rest is still scrambled. And that's the first Spectre door. The second one is located in track 2. After you fight the first shielded enemy, the door will be right above the arena. You just have to jump over some crates and steel beams to access it. The challenge is to defeat all of the enemies within the time limit, but you can only damage enemies 12 beats after landing a parry. The reward here is a broken piece of a health tank. The third one is located in track 3. Shortly after you're introduced to the brutal enemy, you have to walk down the hallway and take a right. Outside you'll see 2 paths. The left continues the stage normally, so take the right path to access the Spectre door. This challenge is to defeat all enemies while only using parry counterattacks. The reward here is a broken piece of a life gauge. The fourth door is located in track 4. In the room with a giant lava tube in the middle, you'll find a generator you have to overheat with Corsica. At the end of the subsequent platforming challenge, you'll find the door. This challenge is to defeat all the enemies while only using dodge counterattacks. In other words, the same as the third challenge except with dodging and not parrying. The reward here is a broken piece of a reverb core. The fifth door is located in track 5. In the main elevator room before activating the nodes, you'll find the door directly below the platforms. You have to hop on the moving platforms and ride them until they reach the door. This challenge is to overkill 2 enemies, in other words, finish 2 enemies with jam combos. I recommend bringing a level 3 battery magnet chip, as that will increase the battery drop rate and you need reverb to pull off a jam combo. The reward here is a broken piece of a health tank. The sixth door is located in track 7. Once you reach this room with multiple giant tubes and Security 2 written on the wall, walk up the stairs and then take a right. At the top of the stairs you'll see the door. This challenge is to defeat all enemies without moving the left joystick. The reward here is a broken piece of a life gauge. The seventh door is located in track 8. After overheating a generator, you'll go through a sequence of magnet grapples and find a door Macaron needs to break open. Turn around and instead platform over the pipes and you'll see the door at the end. This challenge is to defeat all the enemies without taking damage. The reward here is an Armstrong circuit. The 8th door is located in track 10. Right after you enter the atrium, find this column with a couple of platforms. After some tricky platforming, you'll find the door in the farthest right room. This challenge is to complete the fight with a just timing score of 85%. The reward here is an Armstrong circuit. After returning to the hideout, Peppermint will unscramble all the messages from the Spectre doors, and the message is revealed to be coordinates for another Spectre device. Chai reluctantly decides to finish this once and for all, which will give the player access to the Spectre Hub. The Spectre Hub will give the player access to 8 more Spectre challenges. These are upgraded versions of the challenges you already completed. There's also a giant door in the middle that's locked until you complete all 8 challenges. Door 9 requires you to defeat all the enemies without touching the ground. Door 10 requires you to defeat all the enemies, but they only take damage 12 beats after a directional parry. Door 11 requires you to defeat all the enemies using only parry counters. Door 12 requires you to complete the fight with a just timing score of 90% or higher. Door 13 requires you to defeat all of the enemies within the time limit. Door 14 requires you to defeat all of the enemies without moving the left joystick. Door 15 requires you to defeat all of the enemies without taking damage. Door 16 requires you to overkill 4 enemies. After completing all 8 challenges, a platform opens up, giving you access to the door in the middle. After entering the suspicious room, Kale reveals himself as a replica AI. No way! Turns out all these challenges were actually activating the backup protocol for Spectra, so we inadvertently started it. While giving his epic villain speech, the computer turns off. While looking around, Chai and 808 notice that a scrub bot got tangled up in the cord and unplugged it. Chai finishes this by leaving a sticky note telling everyone to not touch the cord. I really like this addition to the game because it gives players a reason to come back. Not only that, it provides a way to test our limits and see if we're capable of beating challenges like this. It makes use of your entire arsenal, highlighting moves you might consider barely used like dodge counters. While the Rhythm Tower tests your endurance, the Spectre Hub challenges your adaptability. I had to return to the hideout while gathering this footage just to change which chips I had installed. It also puts you into specific situations like don't move Chai or don't touch the floor. Overall, while not the most replayable game mode, it's definitely one to remember fondly. This section of the video will be dedicated to all the content that was released as part of the free arcade challenge update on July 5th. Let's start with the very basics. This update added the traditional garb costume pack for $4.99, which gives the crew outfits based on feudal Japan. There were also extra cosmetics added for Chai, 808, and Corsica especially, holy moly. Next, 2 new special attacks were added. The first is My Hero, which has Smitch follow you around and attack enemies in a circle fashion. The next is Cinnamaniac, which has Cinnamon repeatedly jump on all of the enemies and end it by launching the final enemy into the air. There are also 2 new enemy types, the Kimono and the D-Metal. Now let's move on to the 2 elephants in the room. After completing the story mode, you'll unlock 2 new game modes, BPM Rush and Power Up Tower Up. BPM Rush lets you play a series of waves with the BPM or beats per minute of the stage increasing by 15 each time. You start at 145, which is pretty average, but at the end you can reach up to 200 BPM. Keep in mind, before the update, the highest the BPM ever got in Hi-Fi Rush prior was 160. At the end of your run, you'll be graded based on your BPM, clear time, and clear rank. There's also 3 difficulties, Easy, Normal, and EX, which is unlocked after completing 1 run of BPM Rush. In EX mode, you'll start at 185 BPM and the other 5 stages will be 200 BPM. The second game mode is Power Up Tower Up. This is a remix of the Rhythm Tower game mode, but there are 2 differences. Instead of 60 floors, there's 25, and you'll be drained of all your abilities at the start of your run. Before a stage starts, you'll be able to choose which attribute you can upgrade first, whether it be your health, reverb, defense, attack damage, etc. Sometimes you'll encounter bugs, which can either provide buffs or debuffs for a single stage. These can range from creating a shockwave of damage after every parry to distorting a screen to 480p. I kinda wish that was a filter we could equip. Occasionally you'll find a challenge floor which will take the place of the floor you're currently on. This will be a somewhat difficult challenge like breaking the vending machines at the time limit or avoiding falling bombs. Completing one of these challenges will give you much better upgrades, greatly increase your score multiplier, and let you skip the stage you were on previously. However, failing a challenge will send you back to the previous stage and take a heavy hit on your score multiplier. At the end of your run, you'll just be graded based on your score. The new cosmetics and photo mode filters are locked behind the arcade machine. Completing specific challenges either for BPM Rush or Power Up Tower Up will reward you cabinet score. Reaching a certain score will reward you with something new. I really do like these new game modes. They remix the modes we already know, add some extra flair and difficulty, and are overall fun as hell. They add a sense of chaos that was admittedly absent from some of the regular game modes. Like, Rhythm Tower is fun, but you can only regain health or reverb with your time. Meanwhile, in Power Up Tower Up, you can not only do that, but get some added buffs like the shockwave parries. Plus, BPM Rush is just absolute insanity, and that's the biggest appeal of it. Hi-Fi Rush unfortunately doesn't have as many bosses as the other games I've covered, so this will be relatively brief. The first boss, QA1 Mill, is a pretty good opening boss all things considered. It effectively does what any opening boss should strive to do, give the player a look into what the game's going to be moving forward. QA does this through the humor presented in the fight and the overall gameplay mechanics, from the rhythm segments to finding its weak point. It doesn't do anything relatively outstanding, but it effectively does its job as an opening boss. Rekka, on the other hand, is an extremely memorable boss. She's comedically over the top to the point where she has her own hype man. She's not a difficult boss. Once you get the hang of her, she's easy to counter. She damn near killed Chai before her second phase, and she even has her own Potemkin Buster. She has enough personality and charm to stand out on her own and solidify her place as a great boss in this game. Corsica is a fan favorite boss, and for good reason. Setting aside the fact that Corsica is the most iconic department head in the game, she's the most mechanically creative one here. Instead of directly attacking her like you do with every other boss, you have to parry all of her attacks. This boss oozes with creativity, from gameplay mechanics to even the dialogue between her and Chai. Sure, the parry can be kinda finicky, especially rhythm parries, but this is overall a great boss. From start to finish, probably the best in the game.
Sorry.
If I'm being honest, Mimosa is probably my least favorite boss. For a boss in a rhythm game whose entire personality is the stage, they didn't really go all out. I like the little sonic wings she has, and the arena itself is the most colorful, but that's unfortunately all the fight has going for it. Again, her entire gimmick is performances, music, and spectacle, but there just isn't much to remember from this fight. Roquefort, on the other hand, is my favorite boss in the game. Now, hear me out. The twist about Roquefort becoming a werewolf came completely out of left field, so it gains points for that as well as creativity. Unlike Mimosa, they really played into the money-hungry personality he has, with the third arena being a pile of gold bars. Not only that, he gets killed via quarterly earnings, which is again very creative and funny. From start to finish, this boss is overall a great time. Let me just start by saying that whoever designed the Kale fight must have ADHD. Not only do you have to parry 4 little robot flies hovering around Kale while deflecting his attacks, but he can also summon a bunch of lightning and burn you really quickly. This is the only boss where I died more than once on hard difficulty, and I can only imagine him being a pain in the ass on Rhythm Master. At least his boss theme is a banger. This fight isn't bad, far from that, it's just that too much shit happens at once and it can get overwhelming. With the exception of the Essential Hits DLC, Metal Hellsinger's soundtrack was composed entirely of original songs, which featured popular vocalists from some of the best metal bands, like Matt Heafy, Serj Tankian, Alyssa White-Blues, and Mikhail Stane. This is different from Hi-Fi Rush, which actually has a set list of licensed music, such as 1 Million and The Perfect Drug from 9 Inch Nails, Invaders Must Die by The Prodigy, and Inizawa Chainsaw by Number Girl. These songs are crucial elements here, but the game also features an original OST for streamer mode. Like I said in the Metal Hellsinger video, your enjoyment really depends on whether or not you like the accompanying songs for the most part. The genre of music is admittedly not as niche in quotes as Metal Hellsinger's, but if you don't like early 2000s rock music, you're not gonna like it, and I unfortunately fall under that umbrella. The songs aren't bad, but they aren't heavy metal or metalcore, so Metal Hellsinger wins in that department. That's for the licensed music. We also have an entire streamer mode soundtrack to cover, and this might actually be better than the licensed songs. It embodies the same 2000s dad rock aesthetic the original soundtrack has, but it makes it feel more universal to an extent. It isn't a mishmash of different genres of music that admittedly have no cohesion. Like, yeah, Wolfgang Gardner's song helps to set up the main punchline of Roquefort's boss fight, but in terms of the general set list, it doesn't mesh well with the rest of the alt and punk rock themed OST. The Fizith tries to emulate the same feel as Wolfgang, but also instrumentally lets it blend in with the rest of the OST. Sorry this section isn't as well articulated as some of my other videos, it's just hard to explain my taste in music like Metal Hellsinger. I'll just end this by saying this: if you like punk rock and don't mind the lack of direction with the licensed soundtracks, play without streamer mode enabled. In any other case, enable streamer mode and have a different and probably better experience. I'm gonna be completely honest, this video had no reason to take as long as it did. For reference, I started this back in March. My only excuses are that I am incredibly lazy and I also have a part-time job that leaves me extremely exhausted after every shift. In any case, thanks for being patient with me, or if you're a new viewer, thanks for watching the video. The biggest update I can provide is that I won't be starting another video essay like this, and for one simple reason. The next 2 months are going to be incredibly stacked for video games. Because of this, I'm going to try my best to rapid fire release reviews for a bunch of games I'm looking forward to. The games and scheduled release windows for the videos are Mortal Kombat 1 and Lies of P for the week of September 19th. Pre-ordering the premium editions for both games gives me early access, so I'll be able to work on the reviews quicker. Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Marvel's Spider-Man 2 for the week of October 22nd. Spider-Man is on the fence as I still don't have a PS5 yet, but Mario Wonder is definite. Ghost Runner for the week of October 26th. Pre-ordering the Brutal Edition gives me 2-day early access to the game so I can get the video out sooner. And finally, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 for the week of November 10th. Adding on to this, I'm planning on making reviews of Warframe's Whispers in the Walls in 1999 updates like I did with the Deviri Paradox, but those won't be included in this review fest. After I get those reviews out and have time to cool off, I'll get to work on my next video essay. Currently, I'm planning on having it be revisiting God of War Ragnarok. Also, while I'm making that video, I'll end up releasing several idiots react to the 2023 VGAs. I won't mislabel the VOD again, I promise. I'm also debating making a video near the end of December where I list my top 10 games of 2023. Thanks for watching, make sure to like, subscribe, and gift me a copy of Sonic Superstars on Steam. Oh, before I leave, please get better security, Jeff, for fuck's sake. This was the second time in less than a year that someone interrupted your show. I'll admit the Gamescom dude did a terrible job of imitating the Bill Clinton kid, but it's fucking ridiculous that it's even happened this much. Alright, see you guys in September.